Welcome back to our channel and to the third episode of hopefully many more to come. And first of all, we must say we're frankly a bit overwhelmed by your response to the first two. We're getting so many generous and supportive comments from lovely people all over the world. I started out planning to answer every single one of them, but I'm starting to realize that I can either do that or I can edit new episodes. So I hope you'll forgive me for not answering all of your comments. I'll try to answer most of your questions though, but will probably save for some to be revealed in future videos. I'm reading all of your comments, it is heartwarming. And we're getting a lot of ideas for later episodes from your suggestions, so thank you so much for that too. A small disclaimer, since a lot of you are into nice footage, we started recording our process just to document it for ourselves, as this will probably be our last project of this size. Now that we start to work our way through this story more chronologically, you will no doubt notice that our earliest videos are not exactly state-of-the-art quality. Sorry about that. We've learned a lot about things like resolution and drone piloting since then, so it will get better, I promise. Do not lose faith. But now, back to this story. If you've seen our two previous episodes, you know that we're trying to realize our long-time dream of buying and renovating an old house in the south of Italy. After much searching on site and online, we had finally found the dream house, a derelict farmhouse ruin on the Amalfi Coast. Buying it turned out not to be so straightforward, but our persistence and our real estate agent's hard work paid off, and in July 2022, we arrived in Italy for our summer holiday and also to sign the compromessa, meaning preliminary contract, in the notary's office in Amalfi. A compromessa is an intention to buy contract that you sign when your offer has been accepted. You pay an advance payment, normally 10% of the total price, and it's common to agree to not getting that back if you decide to back out. Plus, the seller must pay the double amount if he or she backs out. The compromessa states the agreed price and sets a deadline for the final contract, called rogito or atto. Before the final contract can be signed, you then have the time you need to check out all the legal details that need to be in order, find out if the building matches its document in the land registry, and so on. And since a lot of you are asking about the price, it is my experience that in Italy people tend to be quite private about details like that, and I'm not sure how much the seller would like me to disclose. But I can say that for a ruin and a site like this, in this particular area, you would expect to pay between 300 and 400,000 euros. Neither in Italy nor in a lot of other places you'd normally be allowed to see the property you're buying unless accompanied by the seller or the real estate agent until the final contract is signed. But our sellers were really nice, and after all, the chance of us deciding to squat in the rubbles of the ruin probably seemed slim anyway. So we borrowed the key to the gate and took off to discover the property on our own for the very first time. We were slightly nervous. We had only had a rather quick viewing in February, plus another one in spring. Enough to know that we liked it a lot. Maybe not enough to really see it with more critical and less infatuated eyes. What if it suddenly seemed like a pile of old stones that would never ever become a home? What if we were actually making a huge mistake? As you might have guessed, we were just as infatuated with the building and the land this time. There was obviously still a chance we might be making a big mistake, but we were totally prepared to dive in anyway. If there is one thing we have learned from earlier projects, it is that even though the job is always bigger than you think, it is rarely totally impossible. You just have to put in the work. So, we got to work.
Nej.
The rest of the summer was spent ensuring that all legal details were in order before the final contract could be signed. This may come as a surprise, but they weren't. The registered drawings of the ruin didn't quite match the actual building, or what was left of it. Water tanks in the fields were not correctly represented or not reported at all, and borders in the maps didn't align with the actual terrain. All this had to be surveyed, drawn up and submitted to the registers before the signing of the final contract could take place. And then there were the water rights. Since this is an old farm in an area of farmland, access to water for irrigation is imperative. The two properties we were buying had each their own set of handed-down water rights that stated how many hours, on what day of the week, in what months of the year the property was allowed to fill their tank with water coming from a source in the mountains behind. The water is led from the source via an elaborate system of channels and pipes all the way down towards the sea, passing and serving a number of properties on its way. Any breach of the rules, like tapping water on your neighbour's day, or not clearing your channels so the water is obstructed, is a serious matter. These rights and duties were to be stated clearly in the contract and obviously be in total accordance with any previous historical water agreement, so this took a whole lot of time and energy to get right. The plan was to sign the final contract by the end of July, before our holiday ended. But the weeks passed, there were still loose ends, we had several meetings at the notaries without getting to a conclusion, and when our summer holiday came to an end, the contract was still not ready for signing, and we had to return back home without it. But in September, right before the deadline that was set in the preliminary contract, we returned to the Amalfi Coast to close the deal. Things are gradually modernizing in Italy too, but there are still some charming and a bit impractical habits left.
Nu ska vi i banken. Då ska vi för att vi ska checka att vi ska betala det. Vi säger nummer. Så gör vi det här.
Like paying loads of money for buying property with bank checks. I think also this habit is on its way to be replaced with more modern day solutions, but in 2022 we still had to transfer the money to the local bank, have them draw up these special checks, and make an appointment to pick them up. And finally, the big day had arrived. There had been so many delays and so many meetings postponed, so we did by no means feel confident that this would actually happen on this day either. But if nothing came in the way, the day had come to sign the rogito or atto, or simply the final contract. So we left our apartment in Atrani and walked the beautiful 15 minutes walk around the curve over to the neighbouring village of Amalfi, where we had our long-awaited appointment in the notary's office. And now we were the owners of our own little piece of the Amalfi Coast.
Salutiamo tutti quanti.
And we couldn't wait to get there. So as fast as we could, we changed out of our notary office clothes and into something that could handle stingy bushes and climbing steep steps in summer heat, and hurried over to Marmorata, the frazione that is the home to what will eventually become our house on the Amalfi Coast.
Sätter vi in.
Ja, jag tror jag på. Home!
We found it, we bought it, and now the real work starts. We'll tell you all about that in the following episodes, including answers to your questions about our budget, on whether we'll do the work ourselves or rely on professionals, the time frame, and so on. So hang in there.